I was on duty when my phone rang. It was my fiancée. She told me her car tire had burst on the highway. I told her to stay calm, lock the doors, and wait until the tow truck got there. But before help could arrive, a stranger walked up to her car. He leaned down by the window and asked, "What happened?" She explained her tire was flat. He offered to help, but she refused, saying she'd wait for the tow truck. There was something off about him, something that felt wrong. She watched him walk back to his van. For a moment she thought he'd leave, but the van never moved. Her breathing grew heavy. Then, that monster forced his way inside. She tried to escape, but he grabbed her. She fought back with everything she had, but he was stronger. He raised a hammer and struck her on the head. She collapsed unconscious. Without mercy, he dragged her out of the car and took her away. Hours later, she opened her eyes, and she saw him, sitting right beside her, a knife in his hand. He leaned closer, smiling like a predator. "Your skin is soft. This will be easy for me." Tears rolled down her face as she begged him, "Please, I'm pregnant. Don't hurt me. Let me go." But he didn't care. He silenced her forever. While chopping her body parts, her ring fell into the sewage. The next morning, a kid found a black polythene bag near the sewage. Curious, he opened it, and inside he found a human ear. By nightfall, the police were already combing the entire area for more evidence. I rushed to the location as soon as I heard. The place was crawling with officers, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Then one of them shouted, they had found something. I ran closer. When I saw what it was, my legs froze, my eyes widened, my chest felt like it was being torn apart. It's my fiancé head. I wanted it to be a nightmare, but it was real. The next day, my father-in-law sat in silence. A man who had spent 20 years as a detective, now broken. He couldn't believe that after all his years of protecting others, he couldn't save his own daughter. My sister-in-law, Seyeon, couldn't stop crying. Her sister is brutally murdered. I cried until my eyes burned. That day was the darkest moment of my life. My name is Kim Soo-hyun, and I will find my fiancé killer. I will hunt him, and I will make him pay for his deeds. The first thing I did was get a tracker and a GPS device from one of my colleagues. Then I pulled the files on the suspects. Police had narrowed it down to 4 men. One of them had to be the monster who killed my fiancé. That night, I went after suspect number 1. I broke into his house, tangled him up with wire, and tied him to a chair. I shoved a photograph in front of his face. I asked him to, "You remember this?" He shook his head, crying, "I don't know anything." I didn't believe him. I beat him until he could barely move and left him broken. But in the end, he wasn't the one. Next was suspect number 2. I caught him at a red light. I slammed my car into his bike, sending him flying. I went at him, beating him relentlessly. But after questioning him, I realized he wasn't the killer either. 2 down, now 2 more left. My focus was on suspect number 3. The next day, I went to suspect number 3's house. An old woman opened the gate and stopped me. She invited me inside like it was no big deal. I told her I was from the insurance company. Kyung-chul had a policy and I needed to meet him. She explained she is his mother, and her son had left her, his father, and even his own child behind. She didn't know his address. When I stepped out of the house, I spotted Kyung-chul's son. I asked if he knew where his father lived. The boy gave me the address. I went there immediately. No one was inside. The place gave me chills. It was dark, messy, like something evil lived there. In one corner I spotted a locker. I smashed it open. Inside were women's purses and undergarments. Then I noticed a door. Slowly I opened it. The floor was stained blood. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. That's when I saw it. Something glinting in the sewage. I reached in with shaking hands and pulled it out. It is my fiancé's ring. Tears burned my eyes. Suspect number 3, Jang Kyung-chul, is the killer. Later that day, Jang picked up a group of schoolgirls to drive them home. He dropped all of them off except one, a girl who had fallen asleep in the back seat. Instead of waking her, he decided she would be his next victim. What he didn't know was that I had already planted a tracker on his van. He drove her to an abandoned greenhouse. Inside, just as he was about to commit another heinous act, he had heard something. He picked up a sickle, pushed open the gate, and switched on the lights. His eyes locked on mine. He asked me, "Who are you?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him, rage burning inside me. He charged forward with the sickle, but I caught him easily and slammed him down. Desperate, he pulled out a knife and slashed at me again and again. None of it worked. Panic flashed in his eyes. Then he turned and ran. I chased him. His feet slipped, and he crashed to the ground. And now, he is mine. I put a plastic bag over his head and started suffocating him. He tried to resist, but he was unconscious. In a rage, I was about to smash his head with a heavy stone, but I stopped. I needed him alive. Instead, I forced the tracker into his mouth and shoved it down so he couldn't get rid of it. After some times later, he woke up. He barely can stand. I broke his hand. On the floor next to him was an envelope stuffed with cash. He stared at it, confused, looking around like he didn't know who he was or what happened. He pulled on a cap and walked out, trying to act normal. I watched from the shadows. The tracker was working. The next day, he limped into a clinic. A doctor put a plaster on his hand, and he waited at reception. He noticed a woman at the desk and tried to charm her, but she ignored him, and he left. Later, the girl went into the medical room, and that bastard was waiting for her. He locked the door and said, "If you try to disobey, I'll kill you." The girl was terrified. He tried to force her into a corner and threatened her. I'd been listening outside. I didn't give him a second. I burst in and hit him hard. "This is just the beginning. I'll make your life a living hell." Then, to make sure he couldn't keep hunting people, I cut his ankle so he couldn't run. He screamed in pain. I told the woman to get help and bind his wounds so he wouldn't bleed out. Later, I left him in parking lot. He could barely stand, but somehow he crawled to his friend Taeju's place. Taeju is also a psycho. He used to kill people and eat human meat. Kyung-chul told him everything I had done to him. Taeju listened and said, "That guy must be related to the girl you killed earlier." Suddenly, Kyung-chul's foggy memory began to clear. Pieces clicked into place. I was outside the whole time listening their conversation. Later that night, I was trying to break in. Taeju brought out the girl he had kept chained, dragged her to the kitchen, and told her not to resist, otherwise her death would be more painful. With knives in his hand, he decided to cut her arms, legs, and then her head. Just as he was about to strike, he noticed something. He stopped and went to check, but when he turned back, the girl was gone. He looked around to find her, but instead, he found me standing in front of him. He gave me a death stare and instantly attacked, but I broke his hand. His scream was so loud that Kyung-chul woke up and instantly pulled out a weapon. On the other side, I was ready to kill Taeju, but that bastard came and fired at me. I jumped out of the window and climbed to the top floor. He heard my footsteps coming from above. Inside one room, I found some hooks and an iron rod, ready for an attack. I slowly stepped out, peeking into the corridor, waiting for them. But then Taeju's wife attacked me from behind, and I knocked her out. As I reached for the rod, Taeju lunged at me, but I easily overpowered him and struck his head multiple times. I saw Kyung-chul's shadow and instantly threw hooks on the floor. As he walked, his leg caught a hook and he fell down. This was my chance. I attacked first and started smashing him with the rod again and again. I couldn't stop my rampage. The next day in the hospital, my assistant came to meet me. He told me to hand Kyung-chul over to the police, but I couldn't do that. I wanted my revenge for killing my fiancée. Then my assistant asked, "Sir, is the capsule working?" I stopped him right away because Kyung-chul was in the next bed. I opened the curtain and saw him unconscious. I didn't know he had heard our conversation, and also remembered the moment when I put a tracker on him. He had heard my name during my talk with my assistant. Next day, he opened his eyes in an abandoned place. He barely can stand, but then he said, "Kim Soo-hyun, I know you're listening to me right now." I was shocked. How he know my name? He told me I'd made a big mistake by not killing him. He said he knew I was the fiancé of the girl he'd killed earlier, and that she had begged him not to kill her, that she was pregnant. Rage filled my eyes, and I drove straight to his location. At a public toilet, he found the tracker in his poop. At that moment, a taxi driver came in. Kyung-chul struck him. When the driver was fall unconscious, Kyung-chul put a capsule in him. Then he stole the taxi and drove off. When I got there, I found the driver on the ground. I didn't know where that bastard had gone. There was only one way to find him. I went straight to the hospital where that pig was being kept. I shook him awake and struck him several times until he opened his eyes. I grabbed him and asked, "Where's Kyung-chul gone?" He smiled and said, "Kyung-chul's a hunter. He's always hunting. First he killed your fiancée, now he'll go after her family." To stop him, I told the police that Kyung-chul would attack Mr. Jung-guk-hwan and tell them to send officers there as fast as possible. But Kyung-chul was already there. He'd brutally attacked Mr. John with a dumbbell. Then my sister-in-law, Seyeon, came home. She called out to her father, but he didn't answer, and that pig attacked her. When I reached the place, policemen were already everywhere. The section chief was there too. I saw Mr. Jeon seriously injured. He was alive, but barely. And Seyeon was missing. Then Kyung-chul called me and said, "This is your punishment for attacking me. I'm going to surrender to the police. And after that, you can't even touch me." Sometime later, the police found Seyeon's body. Kyung-chul had killed her. The police waited for Kyung-chul to surrender. When he arrived to the decided location, he stepped out of the car, covered in blood. As I saw him, I instantly broke my car door, drove straight at him and pulled him in before the police could arrest him. I took him to the house where he'd killed my love. I tied him up like a dog. He started begging, "Please forgive me. Please don't kill me. I have a family." I looked at him and said, "I will kill you, but first I'll make you feel so much pain that your body trembles with fear. You'll die like a dog." I attached a guillotine rope to the door and put it in Kyung-chul's mouth. If he let go, the blade would fall. I left the house but hid a tracker and earphones so I could listen to his screams. At that moment, his parents and child arrived. They heard his voice but couldn't understand what he was saying. They tried to open the gate, while Kyung-chul held the rope with his teeth with everything he had, but he couldn't hold on. The guillotine fell, and he is beheaded. His family screamed when they saw his head. I finally got my revenge, but the victory felt hollow. In that moment, I broke down, crying in agony, knowing revenge couldn't fill the emptiness she left behind.